Black kid rejected from tech camp. Builds robot that wins the national prize. The sun filtered through the dusty blinds of the small apartment in East Atlanta as 11-year-old Micah Davis hunched over his cluttered desk, the hum of his old desktop computer barely audible beneath the rhythmic tapping of his keyboard. Scattered across the desk were wires, scraps of aluminum, half-disassembled toys, and a spiral notebook thick with sketches and equations no one else in his school would have understood, let alone believed came from a sixth grader. Micah's mother, Janelle, peered into his room while drying her hands on a dish towel. "Baby, you been in here all morning. You sure you don't want to take a break? Get some air." He didn't look up. "Almost done with the arm motor, Ma. Just one more line of code and it should lift a can." She smiled softly, her heart caught between pride and worry. Micah wasn't like the other boys in the neighborhood. While they were outside racing bikes or shooting hoops, her son was wiring old printers into homemade drones and memorizing schematics he found on Reddit forums. She loved that he was different. But the world didn't always treat different kindly. Later that day, Micah folded his application letter for the Georgia Institute of Technology's Junior Innovators Camp, a highly competitive summer program for middle schoolers passionate about robotics and engineering. He had rewritten his essay 5 times, making sure it was both intelligent and sincere. His final line read, "I may not have access to the best tools or mentors, but I believe invention doesn't need privilege, it just needs passion." He handed the envelope to Janelle, who kissed his forehead and whispered, "You're gonna change the world, Micah." 2 weeks later, the envelope came back. This time it was thinner, too thin. Micah stood in the kitchen staring at the single sheet inside. The words blurred slightly, though he hadn't started crying. "Not yet. We regret to inform you." The rest didn't matter. He'd been rejected. Janelle found him silent, sitting on the back steps, the letter folded tightly in his hands. "Talk to me," she said gently. "They said I didn't have the right foundation." "Whatever that means," he muttered. "I bet they didn't even look at my design files." "I'm sorry, baby." Micah exhaled slowly. "I'm not mad, Ma. I just—" He paused, then looked up with a new fire in his eyes. "I'm gonna build it anyway. A robot. From scratch. If they think I don't belong at their camp, I'll prove I'm better than it." Janelle blinked, caught off guard by his quiet conviction. "You mean that?" He nodded. "I'm gonna build something they can't ignore." Micah raided his neighborhood for parts like a scavenger on a mission. He traded an old PS2 for a broken toaster and found copper coils in a tossed-out air conditioner behind the laundromat. From the Dollar Tree, he bought toy cars and LED lights, careful to stay within the $10 his mom had slipped him from tips she got waitressing. He named his robot Atlas. Not because it was large, at that point it was just a boxy frame with zip ties and bent forks for hands, but because, like the Titan in mythology, Micah planned for it to carry the weight of something bigger than itself, his dream. Each night, while the city pulsed and shouted outside their window, Micah worked in silence, debugging code, soldering wires, rerouting circuits. His tools weren't state-of-the-art. In fact, most of them weren't even meant for robotics. But with every hurdle, he found a workaround. Where others had labs, Micah had grit. The boy who wasn't qualified for tech camp was building something real. And somewhere deep in the wiring of Atlas's growing form was a quiet promise. They won't ignore me for long. It had been 2 months since the rejection letter, and Micah's tiny bedroom had transformed into a space that looked less like a child's and more like a mad scientist's workshop. Tangled wires snaked across the floor like ivy. Parts were labeled with sticky notes in his tidy handwriting, and Atlas, the robot that started as a dream, was slowly becoming something that resembled a machine with purpose. Atlas now stood about 2 feet tall on its wheeled base. Its arms, still made from repurposed utensils and broken mechanical joints, had grown more precise. Its eyes were two LED lights from a discarded bike lamp, and its processing chip had come from a bricked smartphone that Micah had learned to reprogram from a 3-hour YouTube tutorial. But what truly amazed Micah wasn't just that the robot could respond to basic voice commands. It was the fact that it could learn. Slowly, clumsily, but undeniably it was improving with each test. Janelle peeked into the room one evening after her double shift and saw Micah whispering to the robot. "Atlas," he said, speaking clearly into the makeshift mic embedded in its head. "Can you pick up the spoon?" Atlas twitched once, then again, before the claw-like arm reached forward with shaky intent. It missed the spoon the first time, but on the third try it clasped it, lifted it a few inches, then dropped it with a soft clink onto the desk. "Yes," Micah shouted, pumping his fists into the air. Janelle laughed, exhausted but beaming. "You really made it do that?" "On its own," Micah said. "It remembered what worked." The next day at school, things were less exciting. While other students at Wilcox Middle were swapping viral videos and throwing paper planes, Micah sat in the back of class, doodling new actuator ideas into his math notebook. His classmates didn't mock him anymore. Not because they understood him, but because they simply didn't notice him. That afternoon, as he was packing up his things, a voice interrupted him. "Hey, Micah." It was Naomi, the only other person who had a perfect score on the last science exam. "Hey," he said, surprised. "I saw your notebook last week. You really built a robot." He hesitated, unsure whether this was curiosity or set up for a joke. "Yeah, it's nothing fancy, just something I've been working on." "That's actually really cool," she said, smiling. "You ever think about entering the state robotics fair next month?" Micah's eyes widened. "Wait, the one at Georgia Tech?" "Yeah, it's open entry. Anyone can submit. Doesn't matter if you're in a camp or not." His heart started pounding. "I thought it was for sponsored kids." "Nope. You just need to submit a video and your design file before the deadline." "When's the deadline?" 2 weeks. That night he didn't sleep. Not even a nap. Micah filmed a shaky video on his mom's phone in their living room, using cardboard boxes to hide the clutter in the background. Atlas, now with minor balance stabilization thanks to a lucky fix in the code, demonstrated object recognition, task learning, and simple autonomous motion. "Hi, my name is Micah Davis," he began, a little too fast. "And this is Atlas. I built it myself using only recycled parts and open source code." Atlas is a robot that can learn simple tasks through repetition and error detection. It isn't perfect, but I believe it represents what's possible when someone refuses to let a closed door be the end of the story. He uploaded the video and hit submit just minutes before the deadline. Janelle found him sitting on the edge of the bathtub, staring at the floor. "Nervous?" she asked. "Yeah. What if they don't even look at it?" She placed her hand on his shoulder. "You showed up. That's what matters. You believed in yourself when no one else did. That's something they can't grade, but it shows in everything you built." Micah didn't reply, but somewhere inside, a quiet hope had started to bloom. Exactly 10 days later, a letter arrived. It was a Saturday morning when the letter came. Micah hadn't expected it to arrive by mail. He figured, if anything, he'd get a generic rejection email or radio silence like he did with the tech camp. But there it was, an envelope with the Georgia Youth Robotics Initiative logo stamped in deep blue ink. His hands shook as he brought it inside, holding it like it might vanish if he blinked too long. Janelle watched him from across the kitchen table, still in her scrubs, sipping reheated coffee. "Well?" she asked. I can't open it." She set the cup down and walked over, taking the envelope gently from his hands. "Then I'll do it." Micah turned away, heart pounding so loud he could hear it in his ears. "You've been selected," Janelle read slowly. He spun around. "Wait, what?" "You've been selected to present Atlas as a finalist at the Georgia Youth Robotics Showcase next month in Atlanta." "Micah, you're in." He didn't scream or jump. He just stood there, stunned. All the hours, the parts, the failures, the rejection, it all coalesced into a single breathless moment where something impossible had just become real. The month flew by like a dream on fast forward. They had no money for a hotel in Atlanta, but Janelle found a community scholarship that covered travel and housing. A volunteer STEM mentor, Mr. Lamar, met with Micah 3 evenings a week to help him prepare a proper presentation deck and organize his build notes. Atlas had a brand new frame by then. Micah rebuilt it using 3D printed joints from a nearby library lab that allowed public access to equipment. He even added a gesture-based interface, where Atlas would respond to hand signals thanks to an old Leap motion controller he fished out of a tech thrift shop. One night before the competition, Mr. Lamar leaned over Micah's laptop and said, "This is clean work. You've got vision, kid. But more than that, you've got grit. You didn't wait for permission to be great." Micah nodded, quiet, but the words stayed with him. The day of the competition arrived. The convention center buzzed with energy. Rows of booths, sleek gadgets, excited chatter, and every tech prototype you could imagine. Some students were clearly from elite schools, with full team banners, matching jackets, and professional gear. Micah stood in a simple t-shirt, his booth just a white table and a poster board he made the night before. Atlas sat in the center, quietly blinking. A few kids passed by and smirked. "Looks like a toy," one whispered, but Micah didn't flinch. He remembered the alley where he found his first motor, the hours in his room, the way Atlas had learned to move. This wasn't about their approval. It was about his purpose. When the judging began, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Good morning," he began, voice calm, confident. "My name is Micah Davis, and this is Atlas, a home-built AI-assisted learning robot created entirely from salvaged materials. He may not look like much, but I didn't build him to win a prize. I built him to prove what's possible when you have nothing but refuse to give up." That night, long after the crowd thinned out and judges huddled behind closed doors, Micah sat alone in the hallway, watching the light fade outside the windows. He had done his best. He had shown up, and that, for the first time in a long time, felt like enough. The awards hall was enormous. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over rows of hopeful young innovators seated in crisp lines, many flanked by parents, mentors, and entire school teams. But Micah sat alone except for Mr. Lamar and Janelle, who had barely made it in time after her night shift. They had changed into the best clothes they could afford. Micah wore a slightly oversized blazer Mr. Lamar lent him. His fingers fidgeted with the hem of his sleeve as the announcer began listing winners for each category. Third place for Adaptive Robotics Integration goes to Pine Grove STEM Academy's Project Kinetics. Thunderous applause. Micah clapped too. It was the polite thing to do. But part of him began to shrink inside, preparing for the familiar ache of being close, but not enough. He reminded himself he had already won something greater, the chance to be seen, to build, to finish. Second place. Liberty Prep's Neural Rover. Another burst of cheers. Micah's chest tightened. "And now," the announcer said, pausing dramatically, "first place for innovation and design, awarded to a solo developer who created an intelligent modular robotic system using only recycled and salvaged components. The winner is Micah Davis, For Project Atlas. There was silence. For a second, Micah thought he had misheard, that they must have meant someone else. But then Janelle was on her feet, gasping, her hands over her mouth. Mr. Lamar stood and gave him a soft push toward the stage. Go, son, he whispered. You earned this. As Micah walked up the aisle, time seemed to slow. It wasn't the applause that hit him first. It was the stunned expressions on faces that had dismissed him. And behind them, a sea of people now looking at him not with pity or doubt, but admiration. When he took the stage and accepted the glass trophy, the announcer leaned over and whispered, You beat out MIT-funded projects. Do you know that? Micah just smiled, blinking hard. After the ceremony, he found himself surrounded by people. Students asking questions, mentors requesting interviews, even tech company reps handing him business cards. It was overwhelming. His hands were still shaking when a sharply dressed man in a dark gray suit approached. Micah Davis? Yes, sir. I'm Elliot Chambers, CTO at Dynacore Systems. We sponsor the national qualifiers and fund scholarship tracks for top-tier engineering talent. Micah straightened, trying to still his nerves. I've seen a lot of student projects, Mr. Chambers continued, but Atlas is exceptional. The way you designed the learning loop, the adaptive coding, it's not just brilliant. It's industry disrupting. Thank you, sir, Micah said, unsure what else to say. We'd like to offer you a full scholarship to the Dynacore Future Technologist Fellowship. That includes mentorship, travel, and, if you're open to it, summer work with our innovation team. Micah's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Think about it, Mr. Chambers said, handing him a folder. But I'd act fast. This kind of talent doesn't stay hidden forever. That night, in the hotel room, Micah lay awake staring at the ceiling while Janelle slept on the pull-out sofa beside him. He held the folder against his chest like a shield, heart full and racing. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this hotel, not in the spotlight, not shaking hands with tech executives. But he was. He had built something from scraps. He had rebuilt himself, too. And the world had finally taken notice. 2 weeks after the award ceremony, Micah sat cross-legged on the floor of his room, Project Atlas disassembled in pieces all around him. Not because it was broken, but because he was improving it. His desk, which had once held textbooks and a half-working lamp, was now a modest tech lab. Tools, circuit boards, and wires cluttered every inch. On the wall above, the National Robotics Trophy gleamed like a star. Outside his door, Janelle's soft humming floated from the kitchen. The scent of cornbread and rosemary chicken filled the air. It was the first time in months their home felt light, like it was breathing again. Micah tightened a screw, leaned back, and whispered, "Not bad for someone they told no." He was about to get back to work when his phone buzzed. A message. Dynacore Systems. Micah, confirmation received. We're thrilled you accepted the fellowship. Our team is waiting for you Monday at the Atlanta R&D Lab. Bring Atlas. We have big plans. Monday came like a sunrise. His first flight. His first trip out of state. Mr. Lamar drove him to the airport, both of them quiet until they reached the drop-off curb. You good? Lamar asked, putting the car in park. I think so, Micah replied, smiling but visibly nervous. Lamar reached over and handed him something. A box. Inside, a brand new set of precision tools with Micah's name engraved on the handle. I figured it was time you had your own, Lamar said. Micah swallowed hard. Thank you for everything, for believing in me when I wasn't sure anyone would. You don't need anyone to believe in you to be great, Lamar said. But it helps to have people in your corner. Go be brilliant. The Dynacore lab looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Glass walls, robotic arms in motion, glowing prototypes humming quietly in controlled chambers. A small team met him in the lobby, then guided him straight to a room marked Emerging Tech Fellows, ATL 03, Micah Davis. His own workspace. Inside, a group of engineers, black, white, Asian, Latino, waited, ready to collaborate. Micah, said a tall woman with box braids and a lab coat. We read your Atlas documentation. We're not just impressed, we're rethinking one of our patents because of it. I'm just glad to help, he replied, almost whispering. No, she said gently. You're not just helping, you're leading. That night, as he walked through the quiet corridors of the guest dorms, he stopped to look at his reflection in the window. Not just a boy from Westville, not just a rejected applicant, but a builder, a visionary, one who proved that brilliance isn't something you're born into. It's something you fight for, even when no one opens the door. And sometimes, when you build that door yourself, they can't help but let you in.